Hello, my name is Gabrielle Lopez, and I'm going to talk about how social media will be in 2023 and 2028. The aspect that I want to cover is how social media will be, and then also cover privacy laws as we continue in the future and how this is going to change. So, I'm going to actually start with how social media is now and then talk about how it's going to change. Okay, so I first want to cover what the privacy refers to, as you can tell on that first slide. Um, what is privacy?
Is tax exemptions, all of my companies.
Your worth,
Yeah.
your finances.
Wow.
This goes into a larger question of how companies are treating their technology and their policy, if they even have a policy.
Yeah.
In many cases, I've seen it's an afterthought. In startup mode, many companies, they hire their developers, and then information policy comes much, much later. But doing it from the beginning, as you can see, when you register that domain, when you start creating these corporations, you're starting that footprint. So you need to control it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at here is a pile of things that have been indexed, and then over time, as software gets more sophisticated, they'll get more searchable and obtainable.
We cast long digital shadows. Imagine the footprint left by a business with hundreds of employees, all with the company email address, all contributing to the online reputation. And this is just data willingly put in the public domain. But what happens when data that isn't for public consumption ends up in the wrong hands? Information we assume is secure, like financial details, credit card numbers, health records, business correspondence. When a business falls victim to a sensitive data breach, the consequences can be particularly devastating. In order to get a better idea of this threat, I'm going to face it head on. I'm going to get my Guardian computer hacked. The first hacker struck at a live telegraph event in 1903. John Fleming was not at all pleased that prankster and magician Neville Maskelyne chose to
So, overall, with a survey that was done in 2014, that 90% of Americans either agree or strongly disagree that people have lost control over how personal information is collected. Um, so, 80% of social media users are actually concerned about advertising. So, we can already see that society is already heading towards a more, let's read terms and conditions, or what are we letting the government know? So I think they're becoming more weary about it, and I think that's the direction we're actually going. So I can already see that in 2023, 2028, the public's going to want to have a little bit more control of that, which is going to take me to my next segment is, are we going to think we do, but not? Because in other situations, we hear how people, I don't think social media is going to go away. I think it's only going to get bigger. And I think that these companies, these social media companies, are wanting to feel like they do have privacy and telling the public, hey, this is what we're doing. I mean, you can, with Facebook alone, you can already change your settings of who can see your phone, etc. So I think from a surface point of view, definitely you will have the opportunity to think that you have privacy, but I don't think 100% we will have that privacy.
Information out of this database. But again, I would like to see that a lot easier and perhaps the default rather than something that you have to engineer.
Yeah, I mean, agree. That's sort of part of the problem, isn't it? Do you take the time to go and adjust your privacy settings and everything on Facebook? The way it's set up is so quick and easy to use. You mentioned before that there are other technology companies that are developing alternatives, but really, is anyone going to take the time to find out about them, to switch over? I mean, Facebook is so pervasive, isn't it? We're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's up to the users to figure out this. There's loads of alternatives. I think it's going to come all by itself. We're kind of in a data ethical wave, you could call it, almost like the environmental movement, and you see it all over. The law, the new EU law, is in a sense a symptom of this change of awareness around what the role of data as power, information as power, these different kinds of technologies. Like, for example, if you look at the legality of what has been going on now, then I mean, from the 25th of May, when the EU data protection regulation is truly implemented or goes into place, there's several things in this case that wouldn't be legal at all. For example, the way in which you get consent from users. Facebook has gotten consent from users to use their data, and the way that in general the thing of sharing your friends' data is not. It is illegal. So there's several things that movement. It's a whole culture movement, a whole societal movement that I think it's gonna change itself, just like the environmental movement. Right now, today, if you're a company that you're not environmentally aware, if you don't if you don't treat the environment well, you'll lose in your brand, you lose customers, you lose your investment.
I believe the future of privacy on social media, kind of how we saw in the video before, is going to adapt how it is currently in Europe, which they use something called GDPR, which primarily gives the individual citizens more control over their personal data. So it's having them have more control. And I'm actually going to show a video in this next slide that kind of explains it more, and how not only do they get protected from their like personal data, but also like how they can share their data as well.
GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, is an EU regulation that aims to harmonize the data protection regulations and strengthen data protection for all individuals in the European Union. After 4 years of preparation and discussion, the GDPR was approved by the European Parliament on April 14, 2016. The GDPR started to apply in May 25, 2018. GDPR replaces the earlier Data Protection Directive that was implemented in national level in 1995. GDPR instead will begin to apply to all member states at the same time. GDPR applies to almost all companies operating in the EU. The regulation applies also to organizations outside the European Union if they collect or process personal data of EU residents. Personal data is defined as any information related to a natural person or data subject that can be used to identify the person directly or indirectly. Data breaches which may pose a risk to individuals must be notified to affected individuals without undue delay and to the data protection authorities within 72 hours. In case of a data breach, organizations can be fined up to 4% of annual global turnover, or 20 million euro, depending on which one is higher. Individuals can find out whether or not their personal data is being processed, where and for what purpose. A copy of the personal data shall be provided free of charge, when asked for. The data subject is also entitled to have his or her personal data erased by the data controller under certain conditions. What's more, public authorities as well as organizations that engage in large-scale systematic monitoring or processing of sensitive personal data must appoint a data protection officer. MIPIM Strong Authentication helps your company to protect the personal user data you control or process. For more information, go to our website mipin.com.
I've been using these cases since they first came out, so my obsession for them runs really deep. These ones are so good. Anyway, I have discount codes you can swipe up if you want to check these ones out. I will write them on here.
First things first, you'll need to find the right influencers for your brand. This is totally dependent on what you're selling and the brand image that you're trying to build. It's always a good idea to use data-driven decisions when it comes to building a business. With Instagram, there are plenty of tools you can use to find the best influencers for your brand. Tools like Ninja Outreach and Snapfluence can connect you to a wealth of influencers who are ready to get involved with new, exciting brands like yours. Simply search for the type of influencers you're looking for using keywords like women's fashion, for example, and you'll be presented with a list of high potential influencers. You can also search for influencers manually with tools like Keyhole.io. Search for terms related to your niche, and you'll see which users have the highest engagement. Later, you can reach out to those influencers directly. Finding the right influencers might take a while. You'll probably need to go through many different posts and hashtags to find influencers who are a good fit for your brand, but it's worth it in the long run. Investing time upfront can help you avoid failed marketing campaigns in the future. Once you've found the right influencers for your brand, you'll need to start making steps towards forming a business partnership with them. First, send your chosen influencers a brief introduction to your brand. Give them an idea of the products that you're trying to sell and provide them with some information about what you're looking for from their posts. You'll also need to compensate influencers for their services. Typically, Instagram influencers are paid in one of two ways. First, by flat monetary compensation, say $200 for one post promoting your brand, or by a commission-based payment like 10% of every sale that they bring in. You can measure the sales a particular influencer generates by providing the influencers with a discount code, like Jessica10. You can assume that every buyer who enters that discount code came from that influencer, and you'll know how much commission you need to pay. Decide which payment method fits your business best, and include your choice in your initial pitch to your influencers. Once you've come to an agreement with your influencers, it's time for them to get to work by promoting your brand. You'll likely need to send your influencers a couple of products that they can use in their campaigns. You want their followers to notice the influencers wearing or using your products. Now, don't worry if you're dropshipping.
Okay, lastly, because I'm running out of time, I want to talk about like social media is going to change. I truly believe, because I've worked with Instagram influencers for my job and I hate it, but I do believe like it's completely going to change. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I kind of talk about micro influencers, but I honestly think there's going to be like levels of Instagram influencers, and I added like an image. Thank you, Canva. I think there's going to be worldwide, nationwide, and then community, like state. And I think advertisement's going to just be gone. And this can be far fetched of an idea, but I think companies are just going to pay Instagram, and Instagram is going to like find the best one for you depending on how much you're willing to pay Instagram or social media. To kind of just get rid of advertising altogether. I mean, people are like, I've fallen into it where I'm like, oh my gosh, she said that. I'm not going to say names, and I buy it. Like, I'm falling for it too. So I honestly, truly think that in the future, we're not going to have like ads anymore. It's just going to be Instagram influencers. I also, real quick, because I'm running out of time, think laptops or desktops, mostly desktops, are going to be gone, and everything's going to be via phone and tablets. I honestly feel like that's where this generation is going. So that is pretty much how I feel like everything's going to go. Privacy, I think, is going to change. And I think it has to because of how much Instagram and social media. I also think Snapchat is probably going to kind of disappear per reasons of privacy. But I really do think that like Instagram and Facebook will have tweaks to it. But I do think that it's going to stay just because of like we hate it, but we love it at the same time, right? Like I'm sometimes like, I hate social media, but I do spend so much time on it, and I do look at it to buy things. Like I want to know if it's good, and it's a great idea. So I do think it's still going to stay. It's going to be so complicated, but I really truly do believe that it's not slowing down anytime soon. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I know you didn't see my face, but you can hear my lovely voice for 12 minutes and 15 seconds. Thank you and have a great day.